Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here with my friend, Erica Seremeta from BlackRock. Erica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, fabulous. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, this is so awesome. It's been an amazing Pride Week so far. We've had some fantastic shows, some fantastic perspectives. I've laughed, I've cried, I've learned, and I can't wait for our conversation today. Hey, everybody, if you're tuning in right now, I want to know who you are, where you are. Put it in the comments. Let me know what's going on out there in the world with you. Hit that like button as well. Let us know you're out there. Let everybody else know. Throw your support in there too. We got people coming in on LinkedIn. This is great. Facebook, YouTube, fantastic. Keep it coming here. I see people over here. Let's go. Got to get them popped up. Oh, there we go. Jana, feeling blessed and excited to hear from Erica. Yeah, Jana from Brazil in Rio. That's awesome. What's up, Jana? Love the background there too. The pride background is fantastic.
It's pretty.
Yeah, awesome. Erica, really quick, could you just introduce yourself real quick? Just like kind of who you are, maybe kind of where you work, what kind of just give people a
Yeah.
backstory here, just a
Oh,
little bit. No, we're not going to go too deep right now, but just kind of give people a flavor who may not know you because you're not from the global mobility industry per se.
correct. Right. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me today. My name is Erica Sermetta. I go by she, her pronouns. Very important point there. And I've been at BlackRock for about 23 years. Various roles, sales capacity, sales management, sales technology, you name it. I think more importantly, though, came out about 4 years ago. And being in the financial service industry, it's kind of rare to see some folks of my perspective per se. The LGBTQ community is prevalent, although we need more diversity in it. But seeing trans folks, they're few and far between right now. So that's kind of
Can
the
I
short and
ask you? I
skinny.
want to ask you real quick about financial services, right? Because
Yeah.
my actually my soon-to-be brother-in-law just came in. He's over at UBS, right? So he's in that space too. How would you characterize for people who may not be in financial services? I grew up in New York. My parents both worked downtown, in finance. But how would you characterize what's the vibe like? What's the culture like generally in
I
financial
mean,
services?
generally it's intense. It's fast paced. It's like the stock market, lines go. Depending on what you're doing. I mean, there are multiple aspects of the industry, whether it's actual portfolio management, asset management, risk and analytics, sales. I mean, you name it. But it's always been a very fast paced industry, and it's pretty tough sometimes. Cutthroat can be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so and you came out what I looked, it was 4 years and 1 month ago, right?
Yeah, it was a really really interesting day. It was my 19th work anniversary, and it was already predetermined it was going to be that day. We had a special luncheon in New York City, but yeah, it was May 11th of 2017. So that was a pretty interesting ride into New York that day, dressed as a woman for the very first time on the train. I got to be honest with you.
How did it feel? Like what were the help me understand the emotions. I want to know.
I mean, look, you're nervous to come out. I mean, there's like sequential steps when anyone comes out. I don't care whether you're trans, gay, lesbian, whatever it is, but you get more confidence the more you expose yourself and talk to people. And I remember being on the train and I saw a colleague parked up in front on a ladder in the front seat, and she turns around and she had to take a double take. And she noticed my hair was, kind of pulled back, but I had makeup on and my attire was different. And she's like looking and she texts me, "Is that you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll explain when we get off the train." And, I was like, okay, that's round one. There's going to be a lot more to come.
And was there?
It was very welcoming, though. I have to be honest with you. I couldn't have asked for a better experience coming out in my firm. It was very acceptable. I had multiple conversations. And I think most of all, people really wanted to learn. I think that's the one thing you'll find. And it's one of the reasons I'm here is that for me, it's an opportunity to educate on the community as a whole. And, to me, education is the key to killing ignorance. So ask away. That was my kind of train of thought.
I love it. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing, just the story and the emotions. And I really, I love it. Thank you so much. Can you throw some comments in there? If you're watching this right now, I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're feeling. Throw that support in there. If you've got questions for Erica, let's talk about them. I've got a ton myself. We've had some great dialogue here on the show. We've got Tim Quirk checking in. Please check in. Let us know who you are, where you are, what you're up to. Tim says, hello, Erica and Ben. Sunny in Western New York. Excited to listen and learn. I've learned so much this week. We're going to talk about being an ally. We're going to talk about misconceptions. We're going to do some myth busting. We're going to do all sorts of fun stuff here today.
Misconceptions. Oh boy.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that because I know you're probably gonna educate us here. Sharon says, hi, Ben and Erica from Express Corporate Housing. Super excited to hear today's show. That's awesome. Deborah Hanson checking in. Thanks for sharing, Erica. Hi, Ben. What's up, Marietta Alba? Excited for the show. Rachel, wow, I can't even imagine having the courage to take on that day. Where did you find that courage and that support you've been at the firm, I think you said 19 years, I think you said.
23 and change.
Wow.
23.
Where did you find the courage to come out?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I confided in what I would call a mentor and sponsor. And we went out to dinner. And when we went out to dinner, he was like, look, this is kind of unusual. We've known each other for 20 years. Like, what's up? What's going on? There's something going on here. Like, what do you want to tell me? And I said to him, I'm like, hey, Joe, I think I'm transgender. Of course, that's after about 3 glasses of wine, a couple of courage shots, right? And he said, so what? That's beautiful. And I really was not ready for that response. I thought he was going to tell me, you need to cover this up. You're going to get fired. And he's like, how old are you? And I told him, I said my age at that time. How much are you going to live? I'm like, I don't know, 30, 40 more years. And he said, there's no dress rehearsal in life. This is it. So what's your choice? And if you want to make that choice, then we should talk to HR. And from that, it kind of snowballed. I started having those internal conversations. The bigger conversation was going to come home later with the ex-wife, which I already knew about my past, actually.
Wow. You now, this is a new record. I think I'm getting emotional at minute 7. Did you know that Joe was going to be that ally for you? Like, was there a reason you picked Joe?
I mean, it was a great friend of mine. He's someone who hired me early on. I just knew his, astute business prowess, and I knew that he would have an answer for me of what to do and what not to do. I literally had nowhere else to turn because it wasn't so much as I was not sure. I was sure now at this point, had seen a therapist, but what to do with the work environment was my biggest concern because I had a career that I was afraid I was going to lose.
Yeah. And you're working at such an amazing firm, and putting so much time and energy into your career because you don't get to that level, just showing up. I mean, you've been busting your butt for a lot of years. This is really, really interesting. Keep these questions coming, these comments coming. I want to know what your questions are for Erica. We're going to prioritize those. I've got my own as well. This is great. Melissa, bravo, Erica, extremely courageous. Yeah. Brian Rivers, hi from sunny NorCal. Janet Turner checking in. This is great. Lisa Ross from San Diego in the house. And Jacob. Hi, Ben and Erica. Ann here. Excited to hear Erica talk. Awesome. Whoop, whoop. I love when people make me say funny things like whoop, whoop. It's Erica, 30 years friendship. Elena.
Oh my God. That's too funny. There she is. My girl.
Isn't it? Yeah, look at that. Jackie showing up here. Hi, Ben and Erica from sunny Houston. Looking forward to learning more about the trans experience. Stephen Meyer, hot Alexandria, checking in from sunny Cal. Jackie, so Jackie's looking forward to learning more about the trans experience. Jackie was really open on the show in the comments earlier in the week as well about her daughter. So let's talk about misconceptions a little bit.
Yeah. By the way, I just have to say this. That Elena girl, that was actually my first girlfriend in high school. And 34 years, we're still friends. She's actually one of my best friends. So you never know. You never know, right?
That's awesome. Go ahead.
Misconceptions. Okay. So this is where I really get me going because the concept that I've heard, and I hear other people being told, trans women and trans men, they're not legitimate women or men. Okay, so what makes a man or a woman, right? And I've been told by some, well, you don't have a uterus. You don't have. Now, look, I'm going to be upfront and honest. 4 surgeries, hormonal treatments. I pretty much went as far as you could in this transition. But there are plenty of women who may not be born that way. Women who can't have babies, men who can't have babies. So it's really in your mindset, in my belief. It's not all that your body is, but to be told to that case is disheartening, right? And that there's only 2 genders too. When you look at it that way, there's non-binary, and people are really starting to learn this too. It kind of falls in the transgender spectrums, and some
Yeah,
people may
talk about the
shift.
spectrum. Let's talk about the spectrum just for a minute, because I think that's a concept that might be new for some people this week, and we were talking about that. Can you explain the concept of the spectrum?
Yeah, so for there are people that go on a journey, right? And I can give you an example. I actually have a neighbor who was married to a man, got divorced, thought was a lesbian, decided that they were non-binary. For them, they thought, I just don't like being a female, but I'm not quite sure I want to be a male. Lo and behold, 2 years later, some self-discovery, they decided now they're not they're he. They're on hormones. They've had surgery. They've transitioned. And let me admit this, sometimes it's a journey. Not every person's journey is the same. Not every person does hormones. Not every person has a surgery. Some people may remain gender queer. They may look one way, but be physically a different, or the way they were originally born, right? So there is this spectrum along the transgender journey, and some people like to identify as both. Okay, so that's it. That's the tough part for some people to swallow, and I get that. But it's how you feel in your mind.
Can you also help define queer for us as well? I mean, I honestly I grew
Yeah.
up with that being a slur, right? Something you
Yeah,
would
it was
never
a
say.
derogatory term,
Yeah.
and I think that it's a great way to describe the fluidity of where you feel on that spectrum. And quite honestly, I got to hand it to some of the younger generations, the millennials, the centennials these days, because to them, why do I need to be pigeonholed into one box? Why do I need to be just a lesbian? Maybe I'm a lesbian that's masculine, but sometimes I want to date a woman or a man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just gender queer, right? So the ability to give that terminology is a big umbrella term, and you'll hear a lot of folks using it. And I know specifically for some of our, maybe like our parents, they wouldn't understand queer. That's an awful term. Why would you want to be called that? But it's also more of an enlightening fluid term right now that has garnered a lot more of receptivity, again, especially among the younger audiences.
This is such a great conversation. Honestly, I'm learning already so many things. We've got questions coming. I want to hear more misconceptions, but we have questions, and I promised the audience I would prioritize their questions. Keep those questions coming. This is an opportunity for us to have conversations, to be candid, to be vulnerable, to be our authentic selves here and learn. We're all on our journey. Valerie says, Deluxe is here from Houston. What's up, Val? Anne says, do you find your job harder after transitioning, since we live in such a patriarchal society, especially in the financial services industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's interesting because number one, I almost came out 25 years ago. Different life, couldn't have done it. I almost came out almost 8 years ago. And the environment in that time, both in the industry, just didn't feel right to me. And then there was almost like this renaissance. We started to see the emergence of diversity, equity, inclusion coming forth. And I said, now's the right time, at least for me, because I had so much to lose, right? I felt I was established in my career. I was a known person. I was married, 3 children. I had the whole thing. But for me, that's where it came in. And when I came out, 2 things happened. This immense boulder and pressure was off my shoulders. Every single day, I would wake up, look in the mirror, and just not be happy with myself. But go to work, wear the 3-piece suit before we had dressed down, do the whole 9 yards, engage. But I always had this back of the mind feeling that I felt uncomfortable. Once that was gone, I had a whole new level of expression to be and bring my whole self to work. So regardless, yes, there's going to be engagements and awkwardness and introducing my new person to other people. but the freedom really outweighed all that.
Thank you for sharing that. I guess I have a follow-up question to this. Was it harder for you at work or in your personal life?
Yeah, that's I thought it was going to be harder at work and easier in my personal life. In reality, it was quite the opposite. I had my children are teenagers. Um, it was a tough thing to go through. It ultimately led in divorce. And when you come home and that's an environment, it's just a tough place to be at. Going to work was almost at some point sometimes a salvation because I could just concentrate, do my work, deal with people as it be. But yeah, it was a tough time. It was definitely a tough time. A good 2 years from 2017 to 2019.
Going back to thank you for sharing that. Going back to the work, you mentioned wanting to come out 27 years ago, then there was 8 years ago, and then it was 4 years ago that you felt like it was the right time. What were those signals to you? Because I think people that are watching, I mean, if we're watching right now, it's because we want to be allies. We're either in the same boat as you, or we want to help our friends, right? And a lot of us are business leaders. Some of us are entrepreneurs and own companies. Some of us some of us lead companies. But a lot of us are in positions where we can influence policies. We can influence the way company cultures are shaped. What are those signals that were present that said, now's probably the right time to do this?
I think for me, it was at the latter part of my life. At the time I was 45, and I started just eating unhealthy. I just kept doing more work at home, work at work. It seemed like I was burning the candles at both ends. And even my colleagues said, "What's going with you? You're gaining so much weight." I was discussing it with myself. I wasn't happy. I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. And the catalyst, believe it or not, was watching a video on Bree's transition timeline. I watched this transition timeline with someone in their 40s. And I thought to myself, I thought about this multiple times, but here it happened. It finally did happen. And I was able to go through and start that process. And I knew if I didn't, I was either going to stress out and have a heart attack or something worse was going to happen.
So what can we do as allies? I mean, this is a big question of mine here, is really as allies, and I know we're hopping all over the place with questions, and keep those questions coming. And I know we want to talk more about misconceptions, but I mean, I'm hearing this, maybe it's selfish, but I'm hearing this allyship mode, right? What advice would you give to, I'll just say me. Let's talk about me for a second. Let's not talk about other people. What advice would you give to me in terms of wanting to be an ally?
I think you need to be, to me, the biggest thing is the active listening. And it does two things. One, it's going to teach you certain things about the community, whatever the topic, if they're gay, lesbian, trans, non-binary, whatever it may be. But it also gives this, it almost acts like a psychological session, right? It gives me that ability, like, now I've spoken to you, I've got affirmation, I'm trusting you with something about me, and it gives me more confidence and courage. And literally after that discussion I did with Joe, I went around and had probably 40 to 50 individual or mini group conversations with friends and allies in my, and it's like all of a sudden I kept taking these more vitamins. I became stronger and stronger. That active listening that they provided to me and questioning helped solidify that I was going to be okay, right? The other thing with that is, the flip side is, when I wasn't there, they were going to be proactive. They were going to have my back. I've heard stories. I just heard one yesterday about how someone who I would not have suspected stood up and said, "Hey, listen, they got it pretty tough, so don't go knocking on that, okay?" And to me, hearing that now, 4 years later, I have more respect for that person than I think I ever had before, and I had a lot for that person. But to hear those stories about how they were proactive and standing up for me behind the scenes, that meant a lot too. So there's a lot of things you could do, and just being sensitive in general overall. And listen, you're going to make mistakes. For you, you may call me dude, or you may call me, hey, or you may call me by my former name. My dead name was Eric. I added an A, made it pretty simple for my mom, right? Added an A. I mean, look, it happens. You make a mistake, you own up to it. If you're gonna dead name me like someone did 3 times in a row, I'm gonna call you out on it. I did. It happened to me once.
Yeah, no, this is great. And as you're talking also about the repetition of having those 40 or 50 conversations, I could already see here. So today's Thursday, so today's like our 4th day of having Pride theme and talking about these issues, and I'm already starting to get a lot more comfortable and well versed, and getting the tools that I need in order to have these conversations, and whether it be just the concepts like yesterday, heteronormativity,
This is the
and
best thing we could do. The best thing we could do is talk about stuff. I'm all for
yeah,
talking about, and I don't care if it's LGBTQ issues, race issues, about being a female leader. It's like, you need to talk about it and acknowledge it, right? So I think that's the product, because people want to stem away. Oh, it's a sensitive topic, I don't want to talk about that, right? If you don't come to the understanding between. That's what you have to do.
yeah, 100%. And familiarity, I think, really, is what's gonna solve a lot of the fear, which leads to the hate and the just. Let's see here. We got a couple comments. Keep these comments coming here. London's in the house. Jackie Rowan. My kids are so laid back about this. No labels needed. Cool. Very cool. Richard, totally right, Erica. I learned a lot from our kids. The world has thankfully come a long way, even though a long way to go. He's got a question. Thank you, Richard. Got a question. Let's see what he says. How far are we, Erica, from when you came out to the world? You would feel as a good, accepting world. Are we? I think he's saying how far along are we? Are we 50% of the way? How where does it feel like we are?
Yeah, look. So go back to 1969, the Stonewall riots, the basically catalyst of the movement, of the LGBT movement. We've made a lot of strides. There's 2015, marriage equality. There's an Equality Act that's pending out there right now. That's going to be a big mover in that percentage of the movement. And I want to be, I'm an optimist. I always believe that we're going to move in the right direction. I look hindsight, last year was a record number of murders for transgender folks. 42 last year. There's like 30 year to date. And I see that there's 250 bills out there in politics to prevent something about someone like me, preventing me to do something. That's not a good sign. It's a record number of bills. So it's like, at the same time, while we're making strides, we're also seeing an uprising across certain pockets of society. I don't know the percentage. Yeah, it's like when you take one step, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's almost at sometimes.
Yeah, it seems. Because I guess I'm assuming. I guess I would assume that it's getting better, right? That it's better than it's ever been. But then you cite the violence statistics, and you cite the bills, and frankly, there's a lot of legislation out there, what I would consider, anti-gender, anti-women, anti a lot of stuff, out there. And so you're right. So there's all this increased opposition. So let me tie this back to my original question about allyship. Is there something that we can do socially, politically, to support rights for trans and other?
It's like we've seen, last year, and the unfortunate situation with George Floyd. But I think the one thing that was interesting to see is just so many diverse people in those marches, and people saying, oh, it's all a bunch of Black people. No, it wasn't. It was multiple people. And that's the great thing that I saw. And I also see that it's almost analogous, like for rights, it's really banding together. There has been so much stuff going on of late against Asian people as well too, and anti-Semitism has risen too. So like, I don't understand why people are targeting so many people, but we literally collectively need to band together and just all understand we have an equal sitting spot on this planet. You know, it's just, that's what we need to do, is band together, not just in pockets. Because there's an intersectionality, because guess what? There are Black queer people, Asian queer people, Latinx queer people, right? So we all have a similar, concern that we want to move forward and drive, and that's where the unity comes in.
Yeah, we've tackled Black issues, we've tackled Asian hate, we've tackled being allies, being allies to women in the workplace on the show, and you're right. I remember, civil rights movement, Black rights are human rights. I mean, all these are human rights, and if we think about if all marginalized people banded together, I mean, it actually creates a majority. I think, especially if you include allies, right? And I was in those meetings last summer as well. My family, my little kids, just to expose them as well. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the diversity that was represented in those marches. But you know what? To be honest, I've not ever turned up for a gay rights, trans rights,
Yeah.
Let me
give it, because you don't realize it, didn't feel it yourself, right? I'm going to give you an analogy. So one of my great friends, his name is Jimmy James, known him for almost 30 years as well. He's a Black man, hardworking guy, close friend, ally. I need him whenever I need him, I can call him. And years ago, when we were out to dinner, we walked into a restaurant, right? And at that time, I was at my ex, and 3 of us are having dinner. He's like, "Oh, I think I'm getting stared at." And I was like, "Oh, no, you're not." And I didn't think anything of that, right? I didn't think anything of it. I was like, "No, you're paranoid, right?" He wasn't. He probably was getting stared at, right? Because it was probably a nice place you're at. And he probably was thinking to himself, he's getting that stare like, I don't belong here. Well, guess what? Fast forward 23 years later, and I'm walking in, just transitioning into a restaurant, and I'm getting that same stare. Guess, what are you doing here? Are you one of those freaks? This is a family establishment. I could just tell by the look. It's an unwelcome look. So I didn't know, but you need to learn through other people's experiences and hear that and understand that, right?
So yeah, 100%. And I think we have to accept other people's experiences as valid, right? And like when he's saying, "Hey, I think this is happening," right? It's like we have to give people the benefit of the doubt. We have to assume that what, like, they're just because it doesn't happen to us doesn't mean it doesn't happen to other people, right? And I think that's also part of othering people as well in general. And I think we have to assume that people are I mean, I hate to say telling the truth, because we have to believe people. We have to believe people in their truth. And I think that that's something that white men really struggle with. I think that we're so oblivious and blind to our own privilege, and the fact that we don't experience the stares, we don't experience the othering, we don't experience the whatever, that we somehow diminish and downplay other people's experience. And it's really got to stop. It's probably anyway, I'm
well, here you're talking also about some of the microaggressions that we see, right? And it could be to, someone coming up to a Black person and touching their curly hair. Or an example, I had a colleague at work, right? They ordered, he's Chinese. They ordered Chinese food at lunch. So they're looking for an extra chopsticks. They go to him and ask him for one. Oh, do you have just because he's Chinese, you happen to have a pair? Just cause, it's kind of a joke,
wow.
But it's a microaggression, right? And it's the same thing. You'll see this within the LGBT community, just the limp wrist and everything else historically. Look, the bad part about this is TV and media of past have done a ridiculous amount of making us the brunt of a joke, right? It's the comedy situation where someone comes in, or they're the cross-dresser, or there's something that brunt of the joke. So that's stereotyping, and that's a lot what we're trying to undo a lot of that too.
Wow, so much to think here about, so much to unpack. We've got some great questions here coming in as well. Let's see here, Lee checking in. Loving the conversation. No problem. That's what the platform's here for, right? Adam Lowy, great conversation. Adam runs a charity called Move for Hunger. He linked there to hunger in the LGBTQ community because it is a real problem. It seems like every societal affliction hits the LGBTQ, but also the trans community harder than it hits.
Yeah, I mean, look, the unemployment rate is like 3 times that of the general population, and we're more likely to get discriminated in the workplace, right? I mean, coming out to your as a different person, it takes a lot of courage, and everyone's journey and experiences are going to be a lot different. Their physical, mental transformation is a lot different. That's why it's important to use the pronouns, and I opened up with that too, and especially for the youth. And that's glad that they're collecting food too, because the youth have it the worst, right? Kids can be brutal. And when you look at some of the statistics, like 40% of transgender adults have tried to commit suicide. I think that's on a Trevor Hotline's website. But it's actually even worse for those under 20. It's almost 50%. And one of my dear friends committed suicide because he just the intense pressure. The discrimination she faced at work made her want to leave her job so bad, which she was tenured teacher at for 6 years. So when you hear these stories and it's like, why did I do this? I hate myself. Society hates me. It's tough. That's why it's the highest suicide rate among the trans community.
40% of trans adults have attempted suicide.
Yep.
That is staggering.
Yep.
That is, I just want to let that sink in for a moment, because if that doesn't drive it home, if that's not the case for inclusion and being conscious of pronouns and I mean, I don't pronouns real quick. Should we all be putting the pronouns next to our names? Is that an inclusion point? It's something, honestly, I've resisted because I'm like, I got enough acronyms, I've got enough stuff behind the name. But is it something that if I do he, his, that now it kind of normalizes having pronouns, and therefore it makes it acceptable for other people who maybe the pronouns aren't as obvious or intuitive? I mean, is this something I should be doing as a cisgender white male? Oh, I just lost Erica. It's okay. I can talk to myself. I've done it before. It's really fine. I've got plenty of opinions. I'm just kidding. I'll let Erica get back on there. We got some great comments coming in here. Farrell says perception is reality, and all of our perceptions can be different. Yes, and they're all valid, right? That's the other thing. They're all valid. They're all different because they're all based on our unique experiences, but they're all valid. I think that's the key. Just because we don't experience something doesn't mean other people don't experience something. Just because we have something or can handle something doesn't mean other people can as well.
All right. I apologize. Someone was calling on my other phone and it interjected. Apologies for that.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. So pronouns. Should I be using he, his?
Yeah, you should be. It's a sign of respect, and it gets more people comfortable with it. And you're seeing more and more cisgender people who identify as their gender they were born with using pronouns too. Because there are variable degrees. You may see a younger person who goes by she, they pronouns, right? And that just means that gives you an indication that they're on that queer spectrum. That's how they identify. I'm trans. I decided to use binary. So I went from he to she. So I made a transgender. I use she pronouns, right? And quite honestly, sometimes people in those transitional stages, they may make mistakes, right? I always say, if you're unsure, just ask. I'm Eric. I go by she, her pronouns. What are your pronouns, right? That way, we're on a level playing ground. I don't make any assumptions and call you by the wrong or misgender you. Being misgendered sends a dysphoric signal to people. And dysphoria is why we are who we are, because we hated ourselves the way we were before. And being reminded of that brings us back to those dysphoric moments. So that's one way to respect somebody, by using the pronouns.
And it's respectful to ask. It's not
Correct.
disrespectful to ask. It's
No,
respectful.
and I would add to one of the, like a nuance to that is like not what your preferred is. Like, oh, I don't switch around. Like, what are your pronouns? Just be direct. What are your pronouns?
What are your pronouns? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask now. What are your pronouns? And I will change it to he, his. Oh my. This is a stupid question, but I was an English major. Is it a little redundant, or is there necessary for the he and then the his? I would think that they would. Are they not doing that?
Well, some people may go by he, they.
He, they. Okay.
Yeah, they, them pronouns. They being non-binary, meaning that sometimes I feel masculine, sometimes I'm not quite sure. So my pronouns are he, they. Right.
Cool.
I guarantee you, the younger generations will definitely identify more of this, and you'll see more of this. So be aware.
I'll go with it. He has. I'm about it. All right. Let's see. Jana, keep me honest on that one. I know you have your pronouns listed. So Jana works with me. She's my inclusion manager, and so she's gonna keep me honest on this one. Let's see here. Richard says it's been an amazingly interesting week of discussions here. I don't even turn it for dinner in our house. I'm on Love and Relo. Richard, don't go missing meals. You know, these things are recorded, but thank you very much. Let's see. Jana says, I'm extremely emotional. My immense respect and admiration for you, Erica. Thanks for sharing.
Oh,
fantastic. We got some questions coming in here. Richard, instead of he, him, would it be okay to have respect in parentheses?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. I mean, okay. Let's see here. Okay, we got a question. Val, I made you wait long enough. Valerie, what is the one most oblivious mistake people make when talking with transgender people? Is it a look? Is it a word? I will be honest, I have not had much experience, and I'm just wondering if you were to stereotype the naive non-transgender, what would that be?
Oh, there are tons of them. It goes back to those misconceptions. So, does that now mean you're only dating men? Oh, when are you scheduled for surgery? Well, not necessarily, right? What are some of the other things? You're going to what bathroom are you going to use? It's just like people don't know sometimes, and that's what I said. Let's sit down. Let's have that conversation. I think it's important too, and this is where I want to bring this in, is about transgender youth, right? It's dangerous that what we're doing and allowing this. I could tell you when I was 3 years old, I knew something was off. Hands down flat. I used to cross-dress when I was younger. Did it all through my early stages, pre-teen, teenage years. And I just didn't know this was an option, right? And I could tell you that there are cases where not allowing it to be expressed has caused children to almost kill themselves. Even a 5-year-old put himself in front of a car because they said, I want to be a girl so bad and I can't be. All right, so this is like these assumptions that it's brought on, it's by parent rearing. It's not. And if you do some research, they think it actually happens within the first trimester of birth. And it's a chemical reaction that occurs based on the chromosomal changes that we occur. And body forms one way, the brain remains the other way. We're all born female, believe it or not. We change based on our chromosomes.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that.
It's amazing. You know, so there's so many others, a lot of things.
I think that's a great physiological fact too to use to help people understand. It's like we're all born female, right? It's like, we've all transitioned at some point in our life, or half of us have. Let's see here.
By the way,
yeah,
for those transitions that don't occur physically, that's where you get people who are intersex. No terminology, no terminology hermaphrodite. Throw that out the door. Intersex could be that variation. So intersex is a real physiological situation where you may be born with some portion of both in some cases.
Wow. Cool. Let's see here. I'm learning so much. I appreciate you being so insightful here. Let's see here. We've got some good comments here. Kyle, this is very important. Thanks for sharing. Erica, we need to make a difference. Kyle was on the show this week. That's awesome. Let's see here. Rachel's got a great question here. Rachel says, what are some specific things a workplace can do to support a trans person in the process of coming out? or specific things a company can do to support onboarding a trans employee to a new job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the ones I helped formulate when I first did my own transition. If you go to websites like an Out and Equal or in other places, they'll have a transition policy template, which really helps explain some of the things that are helpful for an employee who may be hired or come to work, right? It can help explain how you break that information out to the employees, colleagues, and team, right? It could be about when they come to work on their first day, maybe their badge is automatically changed to have their new name. Maybe their name on the door, having all the internal systems reflect that name change, right? You don't want to log in and see your dead name and you're starting your first day of your first new life and you're seeing your old stuff and picture and photo up there, right? Coordinating those efforts does take work, and there's a lot of HR systems depending on how efficient your companies are, right? You may want to have a manager send an email out to the group explaining, like, we're going to be welcoming a new employee. Not really new, but this is going to be Erica. Erica's going to be joining us. Erica's transgender. She's open to conversations. She'd like to be able to share them with you if you're open to having those conversations. I mean, depending on the employee too, maybe also depend on how they want it shared and disseminated within the company. But there really is a plan of policy examples out there that you could have in place too. And then, of course, dealing with medical and surgical procedures too, understanding what benefits are allowed and incorporating your health plans.
Couple of questions here that came up from when you're talking about that. You know, one of the things that came up in our conversation, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, was that you were very fortunate to work for a really good company. I mean, you work for one of the best companies in the world, really. And you had access to a lot of healthcare and a lot of things. And it never occurred to me that, I mean, it almost sounds weird saying it, but in some ways you had somewhat of a privileged experience.
I do.
And I never thought about it that way. I never thought that there were maybe even kind of levels of privilege, even, you know, in some degrees.
Yeah, it's I remember going to group therapy, and in the beginning, 4 years ago, and we would go around the room, and I almost felt guilty, right? I almost felt guilty because I'm hearing these stories. They got fired from their job, they got kicked out of their house, you know, even to the point where, you know, they were married and they got kicked out, and they was trying to support and trying to find an apartment, or their parents disowned them, right? Especially if you're younger. So I'm hearing these stories and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm at a company, they've accepted me. I've got a great job. I still have my job. I didn't get fired. I'm working on actually getting our benefits package to be inclusive. And turns out we actually covered everything, covered a lot of things in the transition journey. And I'm thinking to myself, well, people don't even have health insurance. Like, so there's another privilege that I feel like I feel guilty almost having, right? And in some cases, there are some people I met, especially at a conference I go to, Out and Equal, where you'll find out like people didn't even know they have access to these things, even at some of the companies. And quite honestly, I've heard stories where even the HR representatives did not even know what was available to their employees because they've never been tested before, right? So, and it's becoming more commonplace right now. There's an expansion of coverage of benefits too. And I think that's the other thing that, you know, hopefully others will benefit from, you know, the situation I had.
Are there things from a benefit standpoint, because global mobility a lot of times in relocation does sit within the benefits organization, so there's some good crossover here with some of the responsibilities. Is there things that we should be asking our benefits team, or maybe really I should say our benefits vendor, or, you know, healthcare plan provider?
Yeah,
You know,
I'll tell you what, you know, one of the
yeah.
aside from having a fully inclusive transition benefits package available to employees, I mean, look, as big as our company is, it's been one or two of us who've actually utilized that, and maybe a couple of families who had children. It's minimal cost, right? It's minimal cost, right? Number two, I would say we've actually discovered in partnership, like I also had one of our employee resource groups for our Princeton office, and we partnered with our families at BlackRock. And what we did is help actually move the needle on increasing benefits overall for surrogacy and adoption, right? This is something a lot of other companies have done because they've come to realize, like, well, listen, surrogacy and adoption can be very, very pricey. We should also provide those benefits to same-sex couples, right? And that's something where companies are changing their packages as well too. So there's another benefit that's mutually beneficial, not just to the LGBTQ community, but also the entire population of the companies, right? So the things that are happening, and there's been somewhat of a renaissance, and even programs where companies are bringing in external resource groups to help people walk them through. Because dealing with insurance companies can be pretty tricky, right? And having a go-to hotline or dedicated service can be very helpful as well too. Because you can't be calling Ben all the time to ask all the questions about what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're calling me to consult on
We're in
your
trouble.
benefits package, I mean, I'd love to have the answers though. I think this is actually really kind of fascinating because here we are, it's Pride Month and everybody's, waving the flags and everybody's saying, everybody's changing the logos and everybody's doing all the things and as we talk about that, actually, well, no, okay, I have this problem where I jump around too much. But my thought though is in creating a truly equitable and inclusive workplace, being able to say I have benefits packages that honestly cater to the LGBTQ individually, because we had, what was it on Tuesday, I think it was Jason Sudo, your colleague at BlackRock, Paul Seymour over at Bristol, Mariana Barros over at Difference Intercultural, and these are all gay parents who adopted, adopted, or Mariana had in vitro, right? And so so it's super interesting because that's such a huge part of their life, being able to have these wonderful families. And to your point about a benefits package that actually addresses that, because adoption rates, I mean, this is my assumption, obviously way more important, I would think, to the gay community than, disproportionately important to the gay community than maybe even to the straight community. So
yeah, but again, I will go back to the point. I have a very great friend and colleague at work where she is not able to do that, so she had to utilize those benefits as well too, and those benefits got increased a few years ago, and it's great. That's a great thing, and we've done such mutually beneficial work. She's not part of the LGBT community, right? So they're in fact, it's been beneficial to everyone. And I think that's where we need to see past some of the stuff and just understand that there was benefits to all in some cases.
So, okay. Yeah, I would agree. And it would be really, really cool for everyone, honestly, especially with as many kids out there that need great families. Anyway, so going back to the question I wanted to ask two minutes ago about Pride Month and performative allyship. And everybody's waving the flag and everybody's got the new logos and everybody's doing the support memes and everything. And I've asked a couple people this question, and I want to ask you this question. What are your thoughts about the concept or the idea of performative allyship?
Yeah, there was these perceptions out there that's becoming commercialized, right? And it's like, it's another Halloween. It's another Valentine's Day, right? And if there's good in it, and what I mean by that is, are we using LGBTQ vendors to make this stuff? Are we buying from them? Are we using those people who are an LGBTQ marketer? Are we benefiting the community by doing all this? Or is it just being outsourced somewhere to make a capital investment improvement, right? So that's the real question I would ask. The diligence has to be on us, the companies, of who we're buying and supporting through. There are a number of vendors out there that can supply the stuff, right? It also has to come through authenticity. Are we really seeing a depiction in their marketing, in the materials, in the commercials? Do they really believe on it? Are they also dedicating resources behind the scenes and helping the community? If you read through their year-end report, right? That's where the authenticity has to come through. If it's okay, then great. Then everyone's getting involved in doing it. If it's just made for a buck, then it's not good. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I love the idea of utilizing LGBTQ vendors to actually make the stuff and do the T-shirts, right? I mean, we're taking a flag, rainbow flag, and put it on some Gildan T-shirt we ordered from China, and whatever, or are we actually sourcing it to, our communities and things like that.
So here's what we're doing for our Pride Month internally. We put up a number of items, and actually, when you do that, there is a dollar denomination to help support one of two charities associated with it, right? So you're actually getting some Pride swag, but you're also promoting an initiative too, right? And one of them is dealing with youth. So I think that's the important factor is there as well.
Yeah, I think that's great, and from my standpoint, because I hear the performative thing, and as a cisgendered white male, I hear that, and I hear that from a lot of folks who are in my boat, saying, "Well, I don't want to just be performative," but I think there's something also to just. I think there's something to taking that stance, and I think A, it's better than nothing, but I think B, to your point, it'd be, it's really a great test to say, well, what would your customers say? What would your employees say? And what would your vendors say about your inclusiveness? Right. That's kind of the true test. Yeah. This is a great conversation, but I want to switch it up. I want to have a little fun. Want to have a little fun, Erica?
I want to have a little fun. I like fun. I'm always having fun.
There you go. All right, cool. Sounds good. You got a top 5 for us today?
I do.
Now, in fairness, I asked you this on the fly, and you were super quick at it, and I'm like, all right, so let's have some fun. Let's see what
I'm going to tie this back to the theme. Since I'm transgender, I take estrogen injection. It makes you hungry. Any female out there can tell you the battle against weight is a tough thing, right? But I do like my food, right? So I do like my food. So so I do have a top 5 of food in order I wrote down here. So
I love it. Let's do it. What's number 5?
So number 5 to me is going to be a really, really good burger, right? It's got to be medium rare. It's got to have that brioche bun. It's got to have a nice assortment of toppings, but it's going to be probably on my son grilling on his Weber grill. But yeah.
Okay, so let me ask. So it's a homemade burger, because I was going to ask you where do you get this burger? Like, what's your favorite burger joint?
I actually like a really good homemade burger. Yeah, I mean with some really top quality beef. It's actually Wahlburgers makes beef, right? Mark Wahlberg has, and actually their beef's pretty good. We actually made some there and doctored it up a little bit too.
All right, now you said toppings. I'm a food person. If we haven't noticed that, I'm a food person. What are the toppings?
Yeah, I mean, you got your favorites. You got your. I want the Vidalia onions, right? I want Vidalia onions.
Nice.
Vidalia onions. I typically like to go with a different cheese other than cheddar, like something different, even like a smoked Gouda.
Smoked Gouda and Vidalia. Are you kidding me? I'm there. Yeah. Yes, I'm about that. I'm here for that. Okay. Let's go on to number 4. Number 4. What's on the list? Number 4.
Number 4 is probably one of my favorites. It's a white pie with ricotta, broccoli, and sliced tomato.
A white pie. Now, for people outside of New York, a white pie does not have marinara sauce on it. Okay, a white pie. What's on a white pie, Erica?
You got your mozzarella cheese, you got the ricotta, ricotta, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But I like chunks of broccoli, garlic, and slices of tomato, thin slices of tomato.
Yes, it's almost kind of like a Florentine pie or something like that. Yeah, that's a gorgeous piece. And yes, and like just like globs of like the chopped garlic on there, and it's like kind of cooked, but not really cooked. It's great for a Friday night. We only see people for like 2 days in the office. Yes, 100%.
And number 4 is more of number 3 is more of a theme, but there are some key, like a good Italian dinner, a nice Italian dinner, like a really high-end Italian dinner. And it could be with a special Alfredo sauce. It could be with a nice, really, really nicely done chicken parm or something like that. I mean, there are many pasta dishes too. I just like, there's a favorite pasta place around the corner I like to go to. So.
My go-to right there for family events, chicken piccata, lemon, capers, wine.
Yes. Chicken franchise, that's another one. Yes. Yeah, it's also pretty good too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Melissa's saying the top 5 is really going to kill me, considering I know I have to go eat a hot dog at a Little League ballpark in my future right now. That's great. Elizabeth Soley out in Connecticut says, let's get some pizza. All right. Number three.
That was number 3. That was Italian.
But that was number 3, the good Italian meal?
Yeah.
Okay, I got one follow-up question on the number 3 then. What's the best Italian restaurant, your favorite Italian restaurant in New York?
You know, actually in New York, I don't even know. I can't even tell you the last time I was in a restaurant in New York. My favorite.
True. It's been like a year and a half. You got no data. You got no data on that right now.
I have no data. I'm south of Princeton, but I have a Toscano's restaurant right on a corner. It's hands down the local best. I'm telling you, it's great.
This is great. Mike Falia says my go-to is eggplant parm. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's another one. Another one. I just want to eat them all now. It's like making me hungry.
All right, number 2.
Number 2 for me is like a really high-end filet mignon with that sauce on top, like oh gosh, what's that sauce? I can't think of it now.
Like the all
yeah. But it's got to be medium.
Is it a Bernese sauce?
Yes, Bernese. Yeah, medium rare. With the top that dinner off, it's going to have a little cream spinach and the really, really nice garlic mashed potato. Just that trifecta. That's just like, a Ruth Chris or the steakhouse in Seattle. That was one of my favorites. Metropolitan Grill, I think that may have been it.
Yeah,
maybe.
Nice.
Love
it. A little filet. Okay, I'm a ribeye person, but filet solid. I probably should do more fillets.
Gotta watch the heart. Too much fat. I don't want that stuff. So.
You're right. Number 1. What's the favorite, Erica? Number 1.
Okay, so I can just seem to eat this stuff every single day if it was in front of me, and it's going to be a combination of sushi hand rolls. I mean, you name it. I like a spicy salmon. I like a spicy grill roll. I like tuna, eel. I mean, you name it. It's just that, and to me, a nice bottle of either Chardonnay. I'm done. That's a nice Friday night, Saturday night dinner.
I'm with you. I could eat sushi every day. I could eat like literally plates and plates of it. It doesn't seem to sushi, ice cream, and watermelon. I could eat copious amounts of. Jason says you're killing me with the top 5 right now. Jason, do you agree, disagree? What do you think? Honestly, I usually argue with guests when they do food top 5s because I usually take umbrage. But I got to tell you, I'm with you on all of these. These are all excellent. This might be the first food top 5 that I've agreed with.
And on the fly.
On the fly. True professional. Just boom. Top 5, no problem. Elizabeth says now I'm hungry. Just for the sake of time, Erica, this has been phenomenal. Everybody out there, thank you so much. Hit that like button, throw a little heart out there to Erica, and throw some support in the comments. Thank you for being here and leaving those comments. The show is always better with your questions and your comments. So thank you for participating in the conversation. Erica, I'm going to give you the last word, though. What should we be thinking about?
Inclusivity. Just include us. Inclusivity. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. And thank you for including me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Jody Harris, Matt Tobel on. Can't wait. Have a wonderful